The silence in the Zephyrian War Council chamber was deafening as Admiral Corax studied the holographic display floating before him. Crimson dots marked the locations of 37 conquered worlds, each one a testament to their empire's unstoppable advance across the galaxy. Yet today, something felt different. The usual confidence that radiated from his officers had been replaced by an uncomfortable tension that made even his seasoned warriors shift nervously in their seats. "Admiral," Commander Vex spoke carefully, her scaled fingers dancing across the control panel. "We've received confirmation from the Outer Rim Scouts. The Terran system shows no signs of advanced technology. Their largest vessels appear to be primitive chemical propulsion craft, barely capable of reaching their own moon." Corax's 4 eyes narrowed as he examined the data streaming across his neural interface. Humanity, as they called themselves, seemed laughably primitive compared to the mighty Zephyrian fleet. Their weapons were crude projectile launchers, their armor nothing more than metallic plating, and their fastest ships moved at speeds that would embarrass a Zephyrian cargo hauler. The war room's massive view screen flickered to life, displaying the blue-green marble that was Earth. From this distance, it looked peaceful, almost inviting. Small metallic objects orbited the planet, what the humans called satellites, blinking with weak electromagnetic signals that his ships could jam with a simple thought command. "How many inhabitants?" Corax asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the subjugation of 12 different species. "Approximately 8 billion, Admiral. They appear to be concentrated in large population centers across 7 continents. Our tactical analysis suggests we could control the planet with minimal resistance using standard occupation protocols." Corax allowed himself a rare smile. 8 billion souls to add to the Zephyrian Empire's workforce. The mining operations alone would generate enough wealth to fund their expansion for the next century. His thoughts drifted to the crystal formations his geological teams had detected beneath Earth's surface, rare minerals that could enhance their shield technology significantly. "What of their military capabilities?" he inquired, though the question felt almost insulting to ask about such a backward species. Commander Vex manipulated the display, zooming in on various locations across Earth's surface. "Scattered installations with primitive nuclear weapons. Their delivery systems are slow and predictable. Our point defense systems would neutralize any threat before it could reach our ships. They have approximately 200 nations, constantly fighting among themselves over resources and territory." The Admiral's secondary arms gestured dismissively. Internal conflict was always a gift when conquering new worlds. Divided species rarely mounted effective resistance against a unified force like the Zephyrian fleet. Their largest military formations number in the hundreds of thousands, equipped with kinetic weapons that fire metal projectiles. "Primitive but numerous. We estimate total military personnel at roughly 100 million across all their factions." Corax's tactical mind automatically calculated the odds. His invasion force consisted of 12,000 ships, each carrying between 500 and 2,000 warriors, depending on the vessel class. Elite Zephyrian soldiers with energy weapons, personal shields, and combat armor that could withstand direct hits from most conventional weapons. The mathematics were so heavily in his favor that calling it a battle felt generous. "Begin standard conquest protocols," he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Deploy advanced scouts to identify key infrastructure. I want their communication networks, power generation facilities, and transportation hubs mapped within 6 rotations." The chamber buzzed with activity as officers began coordinating the invasion. Corax had performed this dance dozens of times before. First came the reconnaissance, then the surgical strikes to cripple their ability to coordinate resistance, followed by the overwhelming display of force that convinced most species to surrender rather than face annihilation. Yet something nagged at him as he watched his officers work. Every species they had encountered followed predictable patterns. The technologically advanced ones relied too heavily on their machines and crumbled when their infrastructure was destroyed. The primitive ones fought with courage but lacked the weapons to pose any real threat. The warrior cultures burned bright but exhausted themselves in glorious but futile last stands. Humanity seemed different, though he couldn't articulate why. Their radio transmissions, intercepted and translated by his linguistics team, revealed a species obsessed with conflict. Their entertainment was filled with stories of war. Their history was one continuous cycle of increasingly destructive battles, and their literature celebrated both victory and sacrifice in equal measure. Admiral, Intelligence Officer Zara interrupted his thoughts. There's something unusual in their cultural data that might interest you. Corax turned his attention to the younger officer, noting the slight uncertainty in her usually confident demeanor. Explain. They have extensive records of something they call mythology, stories passed down through their generations about beings called gods and guardians. Most species have similar tales, but the humans seem obsessed with the concept of sleeping powers that awaken in times of great need. The Admiral's interest was piqued despite himself. Superstition. All primitive species believe in supernatural protectors. Yes, sir, but the consistency across their cultures is remarkable. Every continent, every major civilization has stories about ancient guardians who slumber until their people face extinction. They call them by different names, angels, dragons, spirits, but the core concept remains identical. Corax dismissed the concern with a wave of his primary hand. Irrelevant. Mythology cannot stop plasma cannons. But as the chamber continued its preparations for invasion, Zara's words echoed in his mind. He had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved hundreds of species, and built the Zephyrian Empire into the dominant force in 3 galactic sectors. Yet none of those victories had come easily against species with such violent histories and such consistent legends about supernatural protection. The holographic display showed Earth rotating slowly in the void, its white clouds swirling across blue oceans and brown continents. From space, it looked so fragile, so vulnerable. His sensors detected no hidden fleets, no cloaked weapons platforms, no signs of advanced technology beyond what his scouts had already cataloged. Sir, the Advanced Reconnaissance Fleet reports they're in position, Commander Vex announced. 12 ships in stealth configuration, ready to begin detailed surface scans. Proceed. The next several hours passed in routine efficiency. His scouts mapped human infrastructure with methodical precision, identifying critical targets for the initial bombardment phase. Power plants, military bases, communication hubs, and transportation networks were all cataloged and assigned priority ratings for destruction. The humans seemed blissfully unaware of the sword hanging over their world. Their military forces continued their routine operations. Their civilian populations went about their daily lives, and their leaders argued in their primitive governing assemblies about matters that would become utterly irrelevant within days. Admiral, came another report from the reconnaissance team. We've detected some unusual energy signatures from several locations on the planet's surface. Corax felt a slight chill run down his spine, though he attributed it to the chamber's environmental controls. Elaborate. The readings are difficult to classify. They don't match any known technology in our databases, but they're not consistent with natural phenomena either. The strongest signals are coming from remote locations, often underground or underwater. Weapon installations? He asked, though his voice carried less certainty than usual. Unknown, sir. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. They seem dormant, almost like they're powered down or sleeping. There was that word again. Sleeping. Corax forced himself to focus on tactical reality rather than superstitious concerns. Continue monitoring. If they activate any unknown technology, I want to know immediately. The reconnaissance phase continued through the night cycle, with each report reinforcing the initial assessment. Humanity was primitive, divided, and completely unprepared for what was coming. Their most advanced weapons were crude nuclear devices that his ships could neutralize from beyond their detection range. Their fastest aircraft moved at speeds that barely registered on Zephyrian instruments. Yet the energy signatures kept appearing in the reports, always dormant, always in remote locations, always defying easy classification. His scientific team theorized they might be natural geological phenomena related to Earth's magnetic field, but their distribution pattern suggested something more deliberate. As the first pale light of Earth's star began illuminating the planet's surface, Corax made his decision. Begin the invasion. Target their communication infrastructure first, then their military installations. I want this world ready for occupation within 2 planetary rotations. The order rippled through his fleet like electricity through neural pathways. 12,000 ships began moving from their positions beyond the outer planets, their engines leaving no visible trace as they accelerated toward the small blue world that would soon join the Zephyrian Empire. But deep within the Earth's crust, in chambers that had remained sealed since before humanity learned to make fire, something ancient stirred. The approaching threat triggered responses encoded in stone and metal by beings whose names had been forgotten by all but the deepest myths. Power sources that had slumbered for millennia began their activation sequences, following protocols established when the galaxy was young and Earth was chosen as the final sanctuary for humanity's ultimate guardian. The energy signatures that had puzzled Corax's sensors were merely the faintest echoes of systems that had waited patiently through the rise and fall of countless human civilizations. The Zephyrian fleet approached their target with confidence born from 1,000 victories, unaware that they were about to discover why some enemies should remain sleeping. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, in the heart of the Himalayan mountains, in caverns beneath the Amazon rainforest, ancient machinery began to hum with power that made nuclear weapons seem like children's firecrackers. The Guardian was waking up, and it had been dreaming of war for a very long time. The first wave of Zephyrian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing white-hot from atmospheric friction. Admiral Corax watched from his flagship's bridge as his perfectly coordinated assault began, expecting to see the familiar sight of panicking primitives scattering before superior firepower. Instead, he witnessed something that made his blood run cold. As his advanced destroyers opened fire on the first human military installation, a mountain in the Himalayas simply split open. Not from any weapon his sensors could detect, but as if the stone itself had decided to part like curtains. From the massive opening, something emerged that defied every principle of physics his scientists thought they understood. The object was roughly cylindrical, perhaps 3 kilometers in length, and it moved with the fluid grace of a living creature despite being clearly artificial. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating a distortion effect that hurt to look at directly. Most unsettling of all, it made no sound as it rose through the thin mountain air. "What in the 7 hells is that?" Commander Vex whispered, her usual composure cracking as the thing accelerated toward the nearest Zephyrian destroyer. The destroyer's captain, following standard engagement protocols, fired a full plasma barrage at the approaching object. The brilliant orange beams that had vaporized countless enemy ships simply vanished upon contact with the dark surface, as if they had never existed at all. Then the thing fired back. The weapon it used produced no visible beam, no projectile, no energy signature that Corax's instruments could measure. One moment the destroyer was there, its shields at full strength and all systems operating normally. The next moment, it was gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized, simply erased from existence as if it had never been built. "Report!" Corax barked, his voice carrying an edge of panic he hadn't felt in decades. "Unknown, sir. The ship just stopped existing. All telemetry data cuts off at exactly the same moment. No gradual degradation, no system failures. It's like it was deleted from reality." Before anyone could respond, similar objects began emerging from locations across the planet. The Pacific Ocean floor split open to reveal another dark cylinder, while the Amazon rainforest's canopy parted to allow a third to rise. Within minutes, dozens of the impossible craft were ascending toward his fleet. "All ships! Evasive maneuvers!" Corax commanded, but his words felt hollow. How do you evade something that can erase ships from existence without using any detectable weapon? The human military response was swift but conventional. Fighter jets scrambled from bases around the world, their pilots clearly as shocked by the emerging Guardians as the Zephyrian invaders. Nuclear missiles launched from silos and submarines, their warheads tracking toward both the alien fleet and the mysterious cylinders with equal determination. Corax watched in fascination as one of the dark objects simply positioned itself in the path of a nuclear warhead. The weapon detonated on contact, creating a brilliant fireball that should have vaporized everything within kilometers. When the light faded, the cylinder remained completely unharmed, continuing its ascent as if nothing had happened. "Sir, incoming transmission," the communications officer announced, his voice barely steady. "It's coming from one of those objects. On speaker." The voice that filled the bridge was unmistakably artificial, yet it carried an authority that made even Corax's veteran officers straighten unconsciously. It spoke in perfect Zephyrian, as if it had been studying their language for centuries. "Unknown vessels, you have committed an act of aggression against a protected world. Withdraw immediately, or face elimination." Corax found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. "This is Admiral Corax of the Zephyrian Empire. We claim this world by right of conquest. Your threats are meaningless against the might of our fleet." The response came without hesitation. "We are the Guardian Protocol, activated in defense of humanity. You have been warned." What happened next would be discussed in Zephyrian military academies for generations, assuming any Zephyrians survived to tell the tale. The dark cylinders didn't attack in any conventional sense. Instead, they simply moved through space toward the invasion fleet, and wherever they passed, ships ceased to exist. Not destroyed through overwhelming firepower, not outmaneuvered by superior tactics, but literally removed from the universe as if they had never been there. Corax watched his mighty armada dissolve before his eyes, ship after ship simply vanishing without so much as a flash of light. "Retreat!" he screamed, abandoning all pretense of military dignity. "All ships! Maximum acceleration! Get us out of this system!" But the cylindrical Guardians moved faster than anything should be able to move. They didn't seem bound by the physical laws that governed conventional spacecraft, appearing and disappearing across impossible distances, as if space itself bent to their will. The flagship's science officer, her voice cracking with terror, managed to stammer out a report. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. It's like the entire world has become a single massive weapon." Through the view screen, Corax could see lights beginning to appear across Earth's night side. Not the warm yellow glow of human cities, but cold blue lines that connected the sites where the Guardians had emerged. The planet looked like it was waking up, ancient systems coming online after eons of dormancy. "The energy output is beyond our measurement capability," the science officer continued. "Whatever technology created those things, it's operating on principles we don't understand. The power source alone should have torn the planet apart, but somehow it's perfectly contained." More Guardians were emerging now, not just from Earth, but from its moon as well. Luna's far side cracked open like an egg, revealing structures that clearly predated human civilization by millions of years. The dark cylinders that rose from these hidden installations were larger than the Earth-based units, and they moved with the same impossible grace. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from across the fleet," Commander Vex reported, her professional mask finally slipping to reveal naked fear. "The Razor Claw reports contact with 3 Guardians. Signal lost. The Void Hunter was attempting to reach jump coordinates. Signal lost. The entire 3rd battle group has gone dark." Corax's tactical display showed the truth in brutal clarity. His 12,000-ship armada was being systematically eliminated by barely 40 of the Guardian units. The mathematics were so horrifically reversed that his mind struggled to process them. "How is this possible?" he whispered, more to himself than to his bridge crew. The answer came from an unexpected source. The communications array crackled to life again, but this time the voice was human. Young, female, and speaking with the kind of exhausted authority that comes from making impossible decisions. "Unknown alien commander. This is General Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. I don't know what those things are any more than you do, but they're protecting us. You need to leave. Now." Corax activated the return channel, his voice carrying decades of military authority even in the face of his crumbling invasion. "Human General, we had no knowledge of your Guardians. We believed your world was defenseless." "So did we," came the honest reply. "Look, I don't want to see any more ships disappear. Whatever technology those cylinders are using, it's not ours. We've never seen anything like them before today." The admission struck Corax like a physical blow. The Guardians weren't human technology at all, but something else entirely. Something that had been placed on Earth long before humanity developed spaceflight, waiting for exactly this scenario. "Then what are they?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "We're still trying to figure that out. Our best guess is that someone, set up a defense system for us a very long time ago. The activation seems to be triggered by existential threats to human civilization." One of Corax's surviving ship captains broke into the channel, his voice tight with panic. "Admiral, the Guardians have stopped their attack. They're just watching us." Looking at his tactical display, Corax could see it was true. The dark cylinders had formed a loose sphere around the remains of his fleet, but they weren't moving to complete the annihilation. They seemed to be waiting for something. "This is your final warning," the artificial voice returned, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Withdraw from this system immediately. Any attempt to return will result in complete elimination." Corax looked around his bridge at the faces of officers who had followed him through dozens of successful campaigns. Their confidence was gone, replaced by the hollow-eyed stare of soldiers who had just learned that everything they thought they knew about warfare was obsolete. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "Full retreat to the outer system. Plot jump coordinates for home." "Sir?" Commander Vex asked, unable to believe what she was hearing. "We're leaving, now." As the surviving ships of his once mighty armada limped toward the system's edge, Corax stared at the blue-green world that had just become the stuff of nightmares. Less than 4 hours ago, he had commanded one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Now he was fleeing in terror from Guardians that operated technology his species couldn't even begin to comprehend. The worst part was the knowledge that humanity itself seemed as surprised by their protectors as he was. If Earth's inhabitants didn't know about the Guardian systems, then who had placed them there? And how many other worlds might be similarly protected by ancient technologies that slumbered until awakened by external threats? As his ships reached minimum safe distance for jump activation, Corax took one last look at Earth through his view screen. The Guardians were returning to their hidden installations, disappearing beneath mountain peaks and ocean floors as if they had never existed. But now he knew they were there, waiting. The jump to hyperspace normally felt like liberation. But today it felt like fleeing from a nightmare that would follow him home. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Nexus Prime exactly 72 hours after Admiral Corax's battered fleet limped into Zephyrian space. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, growls, harmonic vibrations, and electromagnetic pulses that the universal translators struggled to keep up with. Corax stood at the central podium, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes, optical sensors, and other perception organs focused on him. In his long military career, he had never felt so small, so utterly defeated. The proud uniform that had once symbolized Zephyrian dominance now felt like a costume from a children's play. "Admiral Corax," the council chairman's voice resonated through the chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with shades of purple that indicated deep concern. "Your initial report was difficult to believe. Please elaborate on the events at the human homeworld." Taking a deep breath, Corax activated the holographic display system. Three-dimensional images filled the air above the assembly, showing the approach to Earth, the emergence of the Guardians, and the systematic annihilation of his fleet. He had watched these recordings dozens of times during the journey home, hoping to find some explanation that made sense. He had found none. "Honorable representatives," he began, his voice carrying none of its usual commanding authority. "What you are about to see will change everything we thought we knew about this galaxy." The recording played in horrifying detail. The assembly watched in stunned silence as ships that had terrorized a dozen sectors simply ceased to exist. When the dark cylinders emerged from Earth's hidden installations, several representatives made sounds that the translators couldn't process, primal expressions of fear that transcended language. Ambassador Thex of the Mordani Collective, whose species had lost 3 worlds to Zephyrian expansion, was the first to speak when the presentation ended. "You expect us to believe that a primitive world destroyed your fleet with invisible weapons? I expect you to believe the evidence before your own sensors," Corax replied, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Every ship in my fleet recorded the same impossible events. The Guardians use technology that operates outside our understanding of physics." The crystalline chairman's form shifted to deep orange, indicating analysis mode. "Our scientists have reviewed your data. The energy signatures you detected before the attack were indeed anomalous, but the weapon systems you describe violate fundamental laws of conservation." "Then our understanding of those laws is incomplete," Corax shot back. "I watched ships disappear without any transfer of energy, any production of waste heat, any detectable mechanism of destruction. They were simply removed from existence." A new voice entered the discussion, carrying the mechanical precision of the Synthetic Confederation. "Admiral Corax, our calculations suggest that the energy requirements for such weapons would exceed the total output of a star. No planetary civilization could generate such power without destroying their own world." "Unless," came a whisper from the back of the assembly, "they weren't the ones who built it." The chamber fell silent as Representative Callis of the Archaeological Institute moved toward the central area. Her ancient species had devoted their entire civilization to studying the remnants of elder races, and her presence at this emergency session suddenly took on new significance. "Chairman, with permission, I would like to share some disturbing correlations we've discovered." The crystalline form pulsed once in agreement, and Callis activated her own data projector. The holographic display showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with thousands of points of light representing known civilizations. "For the past millennium, we have cataloged 67 extinct civilizations that vanished without explanation. No evidence of warfare, natural disaster, or technological catastrophe. They simply disappeared from the historical record, leaving behind only empty worlds and confused legends among neighboring species. She manipulated the display, highlighting specific regions. The disappearances follow a pattern. They occur in waves, roughly every 10 to 15,000 years, and they always coincide with the emergence of particularly aggressive expansionist empires. A chill ran through the assembly as the implications became clear. Corax felt his secondary hearts skip beats as Callus continued her presentation. 3 months ago, we detected massive energy fluctuations from the direction of Earth. At the time, we dismissed them as natural stellar phenomena. Now, reviewing Admiral Corax's data, we believe those signals mark the activation of a Guardian network. The display zoomed in on Earth's region of space, showing energy patterns radiating outward from the human system. The signals didn't stop at Earth. Our deep space monitors have detected similar activations across 43 star systems, all of them containing species that could be considered potential targets for large-scale conquest. Representative Thex's mandibles clicked nervously. You're suggesting that Earth's Guardians were part of a galaxy-wide defense network? Not suggesting, stating. The energy signatures are identical, the activation timing is synchronized, and the protective coverage encompasses every major population center of peaceful species within 3,000 light-years of Earth. Corax stared at the display, his mind reeling. Who could have built such a network, and why? Callus's ancient eyes met his across the chamber. We believe the answer lies in the oldest legends, shared by nearly every spacefaring species. Stories of a race called the Architects, beings of incredible power who shaped the galaxy in its youth before vanishing into deep time. The Archaeological Institute representative manipulated her controls again, bringing up artistic representations from dozens of different cultures. Despite the vast differences in the species that had created them, certain elements remained consistent across all the depictions. Every civilization has stories of these beings. They're described as tall, bipedal, with elongated limbs and large craniums. More importantly, every legend claims they served as protectors, establishing safeguards against cosmic threats before departing for unknown regions. Myths and legends. The Synthetic Confederation's speaker interjected. No concrete evidence has ever been found of such beings. Because we weren't looking in the right places, Callus replied. We searched dead worlds and abandoned structures, but the architects were far more subtle. They hid their greatest work inside living worlds, beneath the notice of younger species until those species needed protection. She gestured toward the Earth system on the display. The humans call them angels in their oldest texts, guardians who watch over their world from hidden places. They describe them as servants of an even greater power, beings whose purpose was to ensure that innocent life could flourish without fear of extinction. The implications struck the assembly like a physical force. If the legends were true, if the architects had really established a galaxy-wide protection network, then every aggressive empire in known space was now living under an invisible sword. Admiral Corax felt a cold certainty settling in his chest. The activation wasn't random. The Guardian network activated because my invasion represented the kind of threat it was designed to prevent. Precisely, Callus confirmed, and now that it's awake, every species with expansionist ambitions needs to consider whether their next target might be under architect protection. The crystalline chairman's form cycled through several colors before settling on a deep blue that indicated profound contemplation. This changes the fundamental balance of galactic power. If peaceful species are protected by technology we cannot counter, then the age of conquest may be over. Good, came a firm voice from the Terran delegation's section. Every being in the assembly turned to look at the small group of humans who had arrived just hours before the session began. General Sarah Chen stood at their head, still wearing the same uniform she'd had on when the Guardians emerged from Earth. General Chen, the chairman addressed her directly, We were not aware that humanity had requested representation at this emergency session. We didn't request it, she replied, walking toward the center of the amphitheater with the steady gait of someone who had recently survived the impossible. We demanded it. When someone tries to invade your homeworld, you tend to take a personal interest in the political aftermath. Corax found himself face to face with the human commander, who had witnessed his fleet's destruction. Up close, she seemed remarkably small and fragile compared to the various alien representatives surrounding them. Yet something in her eyes reminded him uncomfortably of the Guardians themselves, a sense of ancient strength wrapped in deceptively modest packaging. "General," he said formally, "my empire offers formal apologies for our aggressive action against your world. We had no knowledge of your protected status." "And if we hadn't been protected?" she asked bluntly. "Would you be apologizing to our corpses?" The question hung in the air like poison gas. Corax had no answer that wouldn't damn him further, so he remained silent. Chen turned to address the full assembly. "My species has been having a very educational day. We learned that we're not alone in the universe, that there are empires out there that casually conquer entire worlds, and that something has been protecting us without our knowledge, for God knows how long." She gestured toward the holographic display still showing the galaxy-wide energy network. "But here's what really interests me. Those Guardian systems didn't just activate around Earth. According to your data, they're protecting dozens of worlds, which means this isn't about humanity being special. This is about someone, long ago, deciding that peaceful species deserve a chance to exist without being murdered by their more aggressive neighbors." The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives began to grasp the full implications. If the Guardian Network truly protected peaceful species, then the entire foundation of interstellar politics was built on a lie. The strong didn't rule because they were superior. They ruled because they had never encountered anything strong enough to stop them. Until now. Representative Callis raised her voice above the chaos. "General Chen raises an important point. The Architect Network doesn't seem to distinguish between human and non-human targets for protection. Our analysis suggests that any species meeting certain criteria, likely related to aggression levels and expansionist behavior, would trigger Guardian activation. Which means," Chen continued, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade, "that every peaceful world in this galaxy now has the same protection Earth does. The age of conquest isn't just over for species like the Zephyrians, it's over for everyone." Admiral Corax looked around the assembly, seeing the fear and uncertainty in every face, every optical array, every sensory organ. The old order was dying before their eyes, and no one knew what would replace it. But as he watched General Chen address the most powerful beings in the galaxy with complete confidence despite representing one of its youngest species, he began to suspect that humanity might have more in common with their mysterious protectors than anyone had realized. The Guardians had returned to their hidden installations, but their message was clear. The galaxy had changed, and there was no going back.